All right, there we go. Hello, everyone. Thanks for still being here after a long week of blockchain talk. So my name is Theo. I've been writing my master's thesis a couple of years ago, I think 2017, on DAOs. And yeah, got down the rabbit hole, never left ever since, got stuck. Now I'm with VitaDAO, which just launched as a real DAO. We've got our first proposals live. And I'm just would like to walk you through our process and share some lessons learned as well. So thinking about DAOs and the blockchain space as a whole, I think we've seen a lot of projects that are really doing very low-level protocol stuff, solutions from developers for developers. And of course, we've had to build a lot of infrastructure first before we could get to do more important things for real-world impact. But thinking of what is the single most impactful thing a DAO could do today? Of course, there are many answers to that, and that's a subjective question too. But the pandemic has, of course, taught us lots of attention to give to health, and also Spock recommends us to live long and prosper by using his greeting. So what we try to do at VitaDAO really is to extend the human health span and lifespan by researching, financing, commercializing longevity therapeutics in an open, accessible, and democratic manner. Because what we are seeing here is really that similarly to how crypto is changing finance, we can see lots of potential here in the biomedical, in the pharma space, where longevity and treating aging as a prevention to aging-related diseases is really not that well accepted. And longevity is currently more or less a niche community that is really engaged in researching this from a medical point of view, but it's growing. So it has lots of similarities to the crypto space that's been growing over a bit more than 10 years now. So why this intersection of crypto and longevity? And this is really interesting because there are lots of parallels, like lots of incumbents dismissing the status, lots of incumbents dismissing the new solutions and preserving the status quo. Like this meme, the WHO could always choose to declare aging a disease and find solutions to treat aging, which would then save the public health systems lots of money. Instead, they choose to treat aging-related diseases in the end of human life with lots of funds, chronic diseases requiring constant treatment over a long period of time, whereas you also have the opportunity to potentially prevent that in the first place. But this is not really generally accepted yet, and currently the incumbents are very skeptical. Also, what's interesting, crypto and longevity has a very interesting intersection of forward-thinking individuals who are economically progressive and also very much looking for impact maximization of science. And lastly, a few crypto high-net individuals who are personally really interested. And you may have seen Vitalik's interest in crypto when he recently donated Shiba Inu tokens and some other very reputable, known people. So just briefly how this works, what's really interesting here is the IP NFT concept, which I'd like to focus on. So what VitaDAO is doing differently to like incumbent biotech VCs and companies and universities is really this, of course, the approach of a DAO, but how do you really go all in and make this trustless? So we've built this IP NFT framework where the DAO as a whole owns an NFT which represents the IP that comes out of a given research project. So anyone can propose a research project to the DAO. If it passes the on-chain vote, it is being funded with 10 to 50K tickets, perhaps more. And then there is immediately the claim for all future IP that comes out of this research tied to the DAO. And we'll have actual real-world contracts, of course, with traditional entities like universities and labs, but they will always refer to the VitaDAO DAO and its NFT that is the sole owner of the IP. So that's really the new thing here. And our structure has, most importantly, this member-based governance node. It's currently token-weighted, but we'll work on including reputation. It's based on Moloch v3. And we've launched through Gnosis Auction, which we've just heard from Beth a bit about. We're also using Gnosis Safe, so much appreciate that technology stack. We also have internally working groups, which are very much focused on getting the expertise on board. And there is, of course, implicit reputation already built into the working groups. But we are very interested in also perhaps formalizing this through source cred, perhaps, and that is on the roadmap. Yeah, and lastly, we've got service providers who just provide, development work or legal advice. So what's more interesting here, I think, is really to briefly touch on the launch we did. It's a fair launch through Gnosis Auction. If you're not familiar with the concept, it's really interesting because we chose to do no pre-sale whatsoever, and this Genesis offering was the very first time tokens could be acquired. And that through Gnosis Auction, which has this fair launch principle where everyone pays the same price in the end. So there's a limited amount of tokens available. And if you bid too low, you don't get any tokens. But those who bid above the threshold, above the final bidding price, all successful bidders would pay the same price. So that's considered a fair launch. And we've got lots of appreciation from the community. Although it's not that intuitive, and we're working on a retrospective with Gnosis Safe too. But we can highly recommend this method also to create trust within the community and really build a DAO like as decentralized as possible from the start. Of course, we've had a smaller community that kicked this off, and you've always got this problem of a small team, centralized, expanding to a DAO and becoming decentralized, and that's a topic for another talk, but this fair launch mechanism is definitely a very vital part of that, I would say. Just briefly, if you don't know Gnosis Auction, this is like a typical bidding process. You can see the time on the x-axis and the amount of ETH on the y. And we've got a week of voting duration, and most bids came in the very last day or hours. So that's something to be kept in mind. Yeah, and some stats. We've got 635 bidders with the highest bid of above 1,000 ETH. And yeah, the token price was rather realistic. The range on Uniswap after the launch was rather close to the end of the Gnosis auction. So we found this to be successful. And we've got a total of $7 million available for funding longevity research. Yay. So what's next? Thank you. Yeah, so just we're currently live with 2 proposals, our governance and tokenomics framework. So this is kind of a meta proposal kicking off the whole DAO, and that's really exciting because we've got the quorum met already, and this is really kicking off the whole DAO process after lots of time of preparation. And upcoming proposals include the very first longevity research project with the University of Copenhagen. And this will, I guess it's going live right now or like in a couple of hours. So it's going to be voted on chain for 2 weeks. And then we've got our very first research project online, and with hopefully many more to come throughout the next months and years. And I just want to close with ongoing challenges and really to kick off the conversation and questions afterwards. So one specific thing we've struggled with, like many DAOs, I guess, is really the onboarding process and like matching people who are interested, but outside still the community, matching them with a task. Like once you're inside, you really know how things work, and there's so much to explain, but we don't really have, we have onboarding docs, but I would really be interested in solutions here, how you found the onboarding process to be most effective, while you may also have some, secret channels, like our legal channel is somewhat sensitive, our longevity deal flow channel is somewhat sensitive. It cannot be fully open, but we want to be as open as possible. So that's always a trade-off to make. And I hope we have some best practices emerging over the next few months and years. And yeah, secondly, really looking at the token engineering community here, culture is such an important part, and it's going fine. We're really happy, but all friends at VitaDAO. But the more the DAO grows, and you really need to have a solid mechanism in place. So I really admire what the Common Stack communities are doing there with praising each other and having this rock solid culture, really like a feeling of community and just feeling connected beyond the work part too. Whereas our DAO is, maybe somewhat less fun in many ways. Like funding research in academic context is maybe not always, it's maybe a bit more serious sometimes, but it doesn't mean it cannot also be fun, right? So we're working on that and looking at Common Stack a lot. Also, like operational efficiency, learning from the lean startup method and experience and being a startup founder, where you need to be super efficient and straight to the point and like make decisions quickly. Align that with, of course, the DAO spirit, which is, of course, first priority. We want to be as open as possible. We want to be exclusive. We are a DAO, but then we also want to be an effective DAO. So how do we find the best middle way here without compromising on the DAO spirit? And then lastly, bridging the two worlds of crypto and biotech is, of course, a big challenge. So we've got crypto enthusiasts who are like, they've read about longevity, and we've got like longevity professors, like long-standing academics who are extremely reputable, and then they heard about crypto maybe once or twice. So we've got this huge gap of information, of experience, and I hope we'll see many more DAOs emerging in a similar fashion, where you use crypto and DAO technology for like completely unrelated industries, right? I mean, that's really the real potential out there in the real world with main audience, like with audiences in the mainstream. But that is, of course, a challenge, and we're working on that and keen to sync with everyone who has similar challenges. Yeah, and then of course building reputation beyond the crypto space, because if you approach a DAO, if you approach a university or like some pharma giant and say like, hey, we want to collaborate, we are a DAO, they would probably kick you out of the door right away in some cases. And like getting a deal done is a completely different story. So if they want to have some address or a credit card or like, who's responsible now? Like you really need to find ways internally how to represent yourself and like what's possible, like specifically in terms of, I don't know, credit cards or like legal liability. But then also trying to build the brand of DAOs, build acceptance for this new mode of thinking, really, and hope that incumbents are somewhat tolerant and accepting towards new ideas. So these are really some starting points for the discussion, and I would be keen to hear your thoughts and your questions. Thank you.
Theo, I'm really interested in this contradiction, or maybe kind of this like complete divergence between reputation systems within the academic world, or the research world, etc., and the reputation systems as they're being built in the blockchain world. And I wonder what I'm going to leave this really open, and looking forward to your take on this.
Yeah, thank you, James. That's a big question, and I'm also not an expert on that. But what I would generally say is, I would be really hesitant to copy the existing system as is, because of course we could model reputation through, I don't know, some oracle or mirroring. We could model it through the impact factor or some other means. But blockchain is more than the technology. I think it's also a new way of thinking, and I guess this is a really big question in that way, that we need to first redesign what's the most effective way to model reputation in the academic space, and then find the right tools, which we of course have, definitely the space with some DAO frameworks where reputation is built in, like Colony, for example, or some extensions to Aragon or other frameworks, and source cred, of course. But again, I would like to continue the conversation with everyone who has a thought on how to really improve the design in the first place and then find the right tools.
Thank you. Congrats, man. Is there a way to limit the budget for a proposal, or how do you assign the budget? Because it seems like it's super ambitious and you need a lot of budget for longevity. So how do you make sure you don't run out of gas in each proposal?
Yeah, really good question. So there's a lower limit, which makes sense, but the upper limit is really decided on the on-chain vote eventually. So technically speaking, it could be any amount that is put up to an on-chain vote, and then the decision would be final. But really, we are putting, of course, a lot of thought into that. And what the longevity working group always recommends are smaller tickets for extremely early stage research, because that is really the pain point where currently there's a lack of funding. So like phase 1, 2, or even 3 clinical trials, there's no problem with that. But the really early stage funding in universities and small labs, where it's extremely high risky and uncertain, there is the lack of funding where this DAO can kick in. And these don't have to be high ticket sizes of money. So we always reach out to the project. We have extensive discussions in the longevity working group of VitaDAO and partners what makes sense. And then we always, we are allocating our current funding to, I think, at least 20, 30 projects over the next years. And then after a couple of years, we're hoping for recurring revenue through our first investments, ideally. But we're definitely making sure that we can fund lots of different projects first instead of just going all in with one.
Okay, and a follow-up question on the NFT with the IP. If you're going to make deals with pharma and universities, you're going to need some sort of legal entity. Is that DAO also has legal jurisdiction?
Yeah, that's a really good point, which is an ongoing discussion. But the decision so far and our way to go has been to remain unregistered and be on Ethereum only as VitaDAO and work through agents. So what we are doing is, with the first research proposal with the University of Copenhagen, for example, we have Molecule, which is a GmbH company that is negotiating, or it has introduced the deal with the university, and it's setting up the contract. But in the contract, there is the VitaDAO NFT as the opposite partner, and Molecule is not. It's just acting on behalf of the DAO as an agent. And we believe and we hope that this is a model for the future too. Perhaps with, if it's a US university, we'll have maybe an LLC in the States, but we would like to keep VitaDAO itself at the core as an on-chain institution. But this is not a trivial question, and I'm not expert in the legal working group. There are many more competent people to ask there, and we're always keen for feedback, because it's very much unknown territory and rather risky in some cases. But we try to be as effective and compliant as possible.
Thank you, Theo.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Theo. Appreciate it.
Thank you.